You need some pom-poms in here, man. Let's go.
This Saturday, the CW is your new home for college football.
Hey, ACC fans, we're coming to the CW.
All your favorite teams.
Go Eagles.
Go Tigers.
Go Blue Devils.
All your favorite players.
I'm just excited to play football again with my guys. It's a totally different energy this year. It's so much fun.
All ready to make history.
We're excited to get to work.
13 unforgettable games.
Are you ready?
And it all kicks off Saturday.
Put the pads on and get after it.
Catch ACC football live Saturday on the CW.
This is brought to you by AT&T. AT&T believes connecting changes everything. I'm Jay Shetty, and on my podcast, On Purpose, I've had the honor to sit down with some of the most incredible hearts and minds on the planet. On this podcast, you get to hear the real-life stories behind their journeys and the tools they used, the books they read, and the people that made a difference in their lives so that they can make a difference in ours. Listen to On Purpose with Jay Shetty on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Join the journey soon.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a Baller.
Welcome in. It's Wednesday, September 6th, the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. People, we've got one day till kickoff.
One more day. One more
sleep.
day.
One more sleep.
Yes.
One more sleep, people. That's America is just waiting to go to bed.
How dare you? The world, Kyle. The world.
My international people are just like, you jerk. How dare you start off a Dynasty podcast not thinking of the entire world?
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, it's one more sleep, and just like a kid before Christmas, we are almost there. But we're here to talk Dynasty and give our bold and spicy brown picks of the year, like spicy mustard.
Spicy brown?
Spicy brown mustard.
This is like a post Chipotle?
I was so confused.
Spicy brown?
Mike, I'm glad you were also equally confused because I had no clue where Kyle was going with that.
Guys, there is a certain...
I had this spicy brown last night.
How'd it go for you?
I mean, it has spicy brown pizza and wings at the draft.
The best part about a spicy take is when it hits, it can be fire. But some of these that we're going to share today, my compadres, I'm going to ask you to hold back vomiting. We do that a lot on the show. I feel like that we talk about things that are gross and nasty for fantasy football.
Because at the heart of it, Dynasty is all about who can be the nastiest and get away with it.
Betz, you got any nasty boys? I know that you are reveling in the Keontae Ingram hype.
Oh my goodness.
Dude, it's been a great year for the Nasty Boys. I mean, are you kidding me? Sean Tucker's making the squad as the RB2. Corey Clement gets cut. The path for Keontae Ingram is clear. Cole Turner is getting picked up left and right. Kyle in best ball leagues, he was getting drafted in round 18, round 19 of leagues. I don't know why, but he's out there, and it's been good. Chris Evans reportedly on track to win the RB2 job. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
It was
my boy T-Will be back.
It was a good summer for the Nasty Boys. So I just want to say shout out to us.
It's what if it's mostly a victory? Are these guys still on an NFL roster? Because I was worried. One of my guys, Elijah Higgins, apparently they didn't want him with the Dolphins.
There's a reason
but
I did
a
not
bunch of
mention
other teams did want him.
There you go.
So, it's all about a popularity contest, and he was super popular for not being employed for a while. So, yeah, the Nasty Boys, but Dynasty Bowl predictions, we're going to talk about that on the show. If you want to get our Dynasty rankings and everything, last-minute drafts you're doing, startup drafts, rookie rankings, all of those, you can get those on our site. And every single week, we will get to have this show updating you about, hey, here's the happenings with Dynasty. So if you're out there, you're like, hey, what do you guys talk about during the season? There is a ton week to week to start projecting. I'll even say that as we get towards weeks, 15, 16, 17, we might start peeking at some of the upcoming rookies.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. So the first ever Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast was this offseason. This is still a little bitty baby show, and we're trying to figure out exactly what it is, and we launched April-ish?
Yes.
Is that about right? Yeah, so this past offseason, when we were breaking down the running backs, it was kind of like one super long show about the running backs. I'm excited to have actual more episodes where we can go more in depth, like maybe 3 or 4 guys over the course of one episode and really jump into how we're viewing them, what we think about those players. But Kyle's right, throughout the season, look, you think at week 5 we can't find more nasty boys? They're everywhere all the time.
I can't wait. We're going to be talking about a player that's currently probably not on a roster. Because, like, in Dynasty, there were years where Latavius Murray saved my butt, and that dude was out on the street for half the year. So, yes, you're going to be able to mine some good players. But here's what I want us to do to kind of start off this episode. Let's look back, and let's give one Dynasty lesson that you learned this offseason. Maybe that's you personally.
Yeah.
Something you want to tell our audience. And, Betz, I will let you start us off.
Yeah, this is one that I've accepted a couple years ago, but I think a lot of people still need to sort of hear it. So it's sort of a we could learn this together situation. Is that it's okay to quote unquote lose a trade in the moment if it works out for both teams. And here's the thing. We don't really know if it's going to be a loss. Like in the moment, some people might be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you made that trade. I can't believe you dealt that pick away. And it turns out to be in 2 years, an incredible trade for both teams. And so my biggest thing here is like, don't get stuck in the trade calculators. Don't get stuck in the, what will my league mates think if I do this? It can help both teams, and that's really what makes a great dynasty trade. So sometimes you got to go get your guy. Sometimes there's times to get out from certain players on your roster, and it's okay to not worry about what everyone else thinks when you make these trades. So don't get too, I think, tied to what a trade calculator says. You can still make trades that are good for both teams, even if it doesn't feel like it's quote unquote a win in the moment.
The real loser in a league like that is everybody else in the league who couldn't execute a trade. So yeah, you should just be able to clown on everyone else and say, you guys are losers.
Yeah.
You had don't tell me what to do. This is my team. And in Dynasty, obviously you can't judge everything right away. But yeah, I think the mode, and we get questions like this all the time, is just who won this trade? It's like, well, did this help this team? There's so many factors of, where they fit in. Are they a flex option for you? Are they just a bench piece? Are you rebuilding? It's so hard to grade a trade when people just send you, here's some picks. It's like there's so much context to Dynasty, which makes it really fun. So I agree with you. It's okay.
I mean, Mike's big trade, right? We talked about that on the show right around like 4th of July. I think if you put that in a trade calculator, Mike probably quote unquote loses.
Oh yeah, it was. But like, if you weren't around, it was.
Yeah, go ahead.
I traded Michael Pittman, Quentin Johnston, 2 firsts for CeeDee Lamb. And yeah, I promise, if you put that in a calculator, because calculators love first-round picks, if you put that in, it would be a landslide for the other side. But for me, it was, I'm going to get myself a young elite player because I'm trying to win right now. It's not that I'm out on Michael Pittman in Dynasty. I'm not out on Quentin Johnston before he's even taken a snap, but I'm trying to do things over here, man. I'm trying to win right now.
And the context of your team is that you're not only win now, but your receivers are going to bludgeon a lot of people, right? Like Jamar Chase, you have Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, and CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
That's just not fair.
It feels good.
So Mike, give us a lesson.
Oh man.
This is a deep lesson.
Yeah, it's been brewing inside me for a very long time, but it is just the boil has come to the surface, and this is not just Dynasty. It's very heavy in Dynasty, but redraft. Kyle knows because we just did our League of Record draft yesterday, and it is screw those RBs. I don't care. I do not care because I am so sick and tired of thinking I have a top 12 running back and then teams doing dumb crap. Like, that's whatever, quote, good for their football team, but it's terrible for my Dynasty team. Like Zach Charbonnet showing up for Kenneth Walker, who at the time would have been ranked easily as a top 5 Dynasty running back, and I took him at the 104, I believe, in our rookie draft. So, I mean, at that time, I bypassed Chris Olave because my team desperately needed a running back, and this was the best way that I could get a hold of someone. And it felt great for a year, and then they're replaced. And drafting so many third-round running backs that just never evolve into anything. If you have Breece Hall, yeah, Breece Hall is fantastic, but Dalvin Cook could be a massive issue this year. I have seen so many of my running backs lose value immediately that I've just said I don't care anymore. I love Hero RB in redraft, but in redraft, Kyle and I just did this draft. I think it's a 5 bench, and we left that draft with 3 total running backs because of how our draft picks and the draft board lined up. It was not, I have to get a running back to bypass a really interesting wide receiver with upside for just a crap running back. No, I'm not doing it anymore. You can't tell me what I have to do. I'll start 2 running backs because that's what the rules say, and then I'll figure it out from there. But just give me those wide receivers when possible.
If you're going to shoot for upside in any league format, especially leagues where it's more common to start, 2 flex spots, then you're saying, like, I can find the receivers. Because, yeah, when you get to wide receiver, 40, 45, like, these are real dudes that can help your team where there's just not a lot of value, and the shelf life, we've talked about this so much, is just shelf life's not too long. So it's saying, would I rather draft or have on my team a Devin Singletary I can start? Mm-hmm. I keep singling him out.
Yeah, you do. Well, because he kept falling to us, and we're like, no, there's nothing exciting about this.
Yeah, or you can find some high upside options. But, Mike is just,
yes,
he's just full Jim Irsay here.
I was going to say, so I think I've, like, I guess he's got more right opinions than I gave him credit for.
He just didn't know he was playing fantasy football the whole time. He's just managing a $1 billion organization,
but look at Jonathan Taylor, which honestly this could be the best case scenario for Jonathan Taylor in dynasty leagues. I know that right now it's really, really frustrating. He's on the PUP. Is he actually hurt? I think so. Is he going to come back to the Colts? I have no idea, but I think that the Colts are just not a good long-term place. If they're moving forward with Anthony Richardson, you could end up in a lateral move, so it's actually not an improvement for Jonathan Taylor. But I do think by next year, Jonathan Taylor's outlook will be much better than if he gets the long-term extension for the Colts, which he still could. But he also could be traded in the middle of the year to a great situation like Christian McCaffrey style, right? I mean, who saw that coming?
Right.
You had to deal with CMC on a bad team, still cruising away, being great, gets traded to the absolute best case scenario for his skill set. Something like that could happen for Taylor.
Yeah, Betz, I remember you brought this up on our Dynasty startup tips of just, here's the age cliff. People don't realize it, but it just comes a lot faster. And then just the changing landscape for the running back position. We talked about, like, once you get past the top 12 to 15 guys, it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know where any of these guys stand a year from now. So is that something, Betz, that just as a whole, as a show, like, we've tried to, like, hammer home, and then Mike just said, all right, screw him, just at the very end?
Yeah, we just kind of laid the foundation, and Mike just really hammered it away there. Yeah, man, and it's the landscape around the NFL that's part of the issue, right? Like, we have no clue what Josh Jacobs is going to be doing next year. We have no clue what Saquon Barkley is going to be doing next year, which is crazy to say because those are the best guys in the league. They've been for the last couple of years anyway at their position. And so outside of like the Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs types who have financial security and a known place to play football for the next couple of years, yeah, I'm with Mike. Like, I've been very hesitant to trade for running backs this offseason, and I'm only doing it, truthfully, when I feel like I have a top 3-4 team in my league where I know I have a chance to win. Other than that, I am happy to either not trade for those guys or trade them away.
And it brings me sadness because, like, there is a little bit – I love high-flying, all the passing, all the scoring. There resides a little small child in me who remembers watching just, true elite running backs just beat up on people. Watching Marshawn Lynch and Adrian Peterson play in their peak, like, there was nothing better than they get through the line. There's just one member of the secondary, and it's AP versus that guy. You're like, oh no, that defender's about to be put in the grave. And then they were, and like, so it was so much fun. But this is a different NFL, and I care about my dynasty teams a lot now. So screw them. Screw those RBs.
All right, I'm going to share my dynasty lesson, but I might have to tell you a story too to kind of goes with it, okay?
Okay.
It involves me looking really dumb. Is that okay with you guys?
Which one? Which story are we talking about?
I know
Do I know this one?
No, you guys don't. And also, I mean, you guys haven't seen me be very stupid in front of you very much. So here's my lesson. The vibes for Dynasty change throughout the summer. And so the picture I'm giving you is don't watch a roller coaster and just sit still, okay? If you're watching a roller coaster and you're at an amusement park, you want to be on the ride as opposed to just watching it and being casual. One time when I was a wee lad,
Okay.
I went to Six Flags. And
Magic Mountain?
so the Atlanta
Oh,
one,
you're an East Coaster,
Yeah.
so what's yours?
Six Flags Over Jordan. The Ninja was the big one in the early 90s.
Okay.
And then I'm going to tell you the rest of the story because I haven't really gone back since. So because
I got to look up this roller coaster now.
so when it was the big ride in the early 90s, and now I think they've transformed it to something else. Somebody's going to call me out later and be like, you're a dummy. It's different now. But when I was a kid, I was watching the roller coaster, and I was so amazed. I was super young, and I got my head stuck in the railing, to the point of when everyone was leaving, I was stuck there.
Right.
And my mom had to call security, and they had to pry the bars open because I had somehow wiggled my way in and got hysterical because I had been watching the roller coaster not knowing what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it really ruined roller coasters for me for a long time.
Interesting. Now, I've seen video. I mean, growing up, I think it happens to most kids. Like at one point,
You get stuck in.
you put your head through some bars because it just goes right in, and then you don't realize that your bulbous head can't make it back out. Did they try putting your whole body through the bars? Because I've seen several videos of kids getting their head stuck, and they can't get them out backwards, and then the kid goes, "Oh, I just go forward and my whole body fits."
I mean, I was pretty hysterical.
Okay.
I was like 6 or 7.
Couldn't calm me down.
They didn't use like butter to kind of like wiggle me through or
They
anything.
didn't bring out the Pam spray.
They should have. It was pretty bad. So I'm using that story as just over the summer, the vibes are good. But if you're watching a roller coaster of a player's value and you're not doing something about it, you're not being proactive, then I think what you're going to be is left wanting. So for instance, the Eagles backfield, when
Sure.
Swift gets traded, if you had DeAndre Swift, you had him at a really peak value. Oh, the Eagles are going to be awesome. They're going to use them. Okay. Now we're 4 or 5 months removed from that. And DeAndre Swift, you cannot trade him for nearly what you could have done then. There was a period where Rashad Penny was the hotness of he's going to be the lead back.
Mm-hmm.
Now the roller coaster is it's Gainwell, and maybe even do you want any of these guys on your roster? And so my point is to be proactive. You might be wrong, you might be right, but right now if you just were left with these running backs, you couldn't really capitalize on that. Same thing with Etienne or Bigsby. Like it's just kind of been an up and down. Even recently, we've got a ton of steam with Tank Bigsby. He fumbles in preseason, and vibes feel a little different. Sam Howell is probably my favorite example. Would you guys say there's probably been at least 3 or 4 chapters of the Sam Howell experience, like
At least.
this offseason, of he could be the dude. Oh, he could be really fun. Oh, it's probably Jacoby.
Yep.
And oh, maybe he's not that good. And now in preseason and everything else, he's kind of been steamed up. It's like you've gone through so many different peaks and valleys. And if you didn't respond to Sam Howell or his pass catching options, you can't really do it anymore. It's people are just going to wait.
Right. Yeah, because you're pulling up to the station. The people are about to get off the ride because the NFL season's about to start.
Yeah, people are done. And I mean, we are all about Sam Howell. If I'm in a super flex league, totally fine, rolling the dice. Sam Howell's my QB2.
Yep.
And I'm excited. And Mike might be the highest among the footballers. Jason's a fraud.
I don't understand. I thought he was about that life, and then I looked at our rankings, and he's not. I am.
I mean, Betz, we're going to be talking about him, right? DFS week 1.
He plays the Cardinals, so yes, sir.
So we will be talking about him. So yeah, if you have a dynasty lesson you learned, you can tag us on Twitter, or they also call it X, whatever it is now. But we are going to get into our dynasty bold predictions.
Dynasty Bold Predictions.
Mike, you've done a lot of bold prediction shows over the years.
I have. I thought you were going to talk about that tasty lick because I did not remember making that one. And I was like, oh, okay. Oh, that was a good one.
You're like, oh, yeah, I made that one.
Yeah, that's right.
I think you made that like way early in the summer.
Possible. Yeah. But yes, I have done many, many bold predictions.
Is it tough for the gut to say, I'm going to make these bold predictions? I understand that this is a 80-90% outcome, that it's obviously not obvious. And just over the years, like, you have some hits, you have some misses, but like, they're bold and spicy for a reason.
They are incredibly fun because this is caution to the wind is gone. I do not care. I don't have to try and him and haw or hedge. It's exciting you're like, this is something that I really do believe could happen. And here's why. But everybody knows, like, these are bold. These are, or as Kyle would call them, they give you you can have spicy brown.
The bold and spicy brown.
Like if you follow the advice of too many bold predictions, you could have a bad time. But it's a scratcher. It's just a huge win though when you actually get them right. And if honestly, it feels great when you get them right, and when you look back, you're like, yeah, okay, well, it didn't work out, but I do pride myself on getting a lot of my bold predictions correct.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fun process. Betz, you're going to start us off with some hometown Eagles thoughts that, I mean, you're telling people this is going to happen. It's locked in.
I mean, I don't want to say it's a guarantee. No, I'm just kidding. I do think, however, what I'm about to say has a very decent chance of happening. I don't know what I would put the odds at, but I think when you ask anyone,
100%.
100% accuracy, this is happening. If you ask anyone who's going to finish with the most fantasy points on the Eagles, as far as A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith, I guarantee you 90+% of people are going to say, oh, A.J. Brown. Because
ADP says A.J. Brown by a lot.
I was going to say he's a top 12 startup pick in round 1. He goes in round 1 redraft, and rightly so. Don't get me wrong. This is not an anti-A.J. Brown take. He is him, and he is very good at football. But Devonta Smith is quietly, like, unbelievable. And he would be a team's wide receiver 1 on a lot of NFL franchises. We have to remember, he was the 10th overall pick a couple of years ago in the NFL draft. He has that draft capital, and he had an incredible college production profile coming out. So I am saying Devonta Smith outscores A.J. Brown this year, and he becomes a top 8 dynasty wide receiver this time next year entering the season. He already took a massive step forward in year 2, that classic, second year leap, that sophomore season leap that we look for. 95 catches, almost 1,200 yards, 7 scores is an awesome stat line. But when you dig into the underlying peripheral metrics, 1.77 yards per route run jumped to 2.0, a great number for a wide receiver. And his targets per route run jumped from 19.5 to 22.1%. Again, awesome numbers. And that's playing next to A.J. Brown, which is incredible. So Smith also quietly down the stretch, like, you wouldn't really think about it this way, was earning more targets than A.J. Brown. Now, it wasn't a huge difference, 107 targets compared to 104 over the last, 13 games or so, including the playoffs. But I feel like Devonta Smith has a real chance to be the top fantasy producer here, assuming touchdown variance breaks right. And that's the tricky part, is because A.J. Brown always has those touchdown games. And if Devonta Smith doesn't have that, this probably won't happen. But I think the chances that Devonta Smith outscores A.J. Brown are higher than a lot of people are willing to admit.
You also have in here that he outscores him and becomes a top 8 dynasty wide receiver, which I think if that happened, that would, those would be connected, right? It's not like he would outscore him and then his dynasty ranking doesn't change. So it's hard whenever we make bold predictions of this player will ascend there, because it obviously means other players move down. So what you're saying is this isn't a negative take on other wide receivers. It's not a negative take on A.J. Brown. It's just saying that this player, at where he's at in his age curve, he's, not even 25 years old yet, former first round pick. Like, that's where he should belong. Like, if he finishes as a top 5 player in redraft this year for wide receiver, he belongs there in Dynasty. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, for sure. And that would be incredible if he did finish top 5. If that happens, A.J. Brown probably is underperforming a little, but Jalen Hurts is having another MVP season. And I do think there's actually more room for these two guys to see even more volume this year. Like, we think about the Eagles games last year, right? In every second half, it was like, okay, they're up by 3 scores.
Yeah,
they're going to take their foot off the gas. Here comes Miles Sanders. And it worked. They still put numbers. And just to put some numbers to that, They only average 11.1 pass attempts in the second half of games compared to 19.5 in the first half of games. So I think inherently, like, they want to be an aggressive pass-first offense. And when you have these weapons, it makes a lot of sense. So I think you can see way more pass attempts from Jalen Hurts this year, and you could see, both guys, truthfully, having an even better season.
Mike, do you feel like you could still trade for Devonta Smith in a dynasty league at 80, 90 cents on the dollar? Like, you're not having to pay the full price.
For where we're projecting him. And I mean, this is a bold take that Devonta will climb that far up. I don't have, I whispered it on the main Fantasy Footballers podcast. I agree that I think there's a higher chance that people are talking about that Smith ends up the true wide receiver one for the team in terms of total production. If A.J. Brown's touchdowns just come down a little bit. Now, factored into that, when you go look at the Smith's game log, you do have when he was absolutely on fire for the fantasy playoffs, and you go, oh, these two games where he had 12 and 13 targets, I mean, that's pretty incredible. Those were Gardner games, unfortunately. So that is a part of that you have to weigh. Not that he was performing poorly before that, he was just seeing 8 or 9 targets, but perhaps then, okay, look at the whole picture. You had those were both losses against the Cowboys and against the Saints, so they had to throw a little bit more. So then that speaks to what Betz is talking about. What if the Eagles, who had I think Warren Sharp talked about the Eagles had a really easy schedule last year, and it's not when you go to the Super Bowl, you don't have an easy schedule moving forward. So if we get the volume up in the second half, it's very interesting. But Smith is someone that I would be willing to be overly aggressive trying to go get. Follow Betz's tip of maybe it doesn't look like you won that trade, but I think getting out in front of Smith before next year's offseason, I think you will end up coming out ahead.
Yeah, in our startup rankings, he's wide receiver 13. And I think just the age curve in general, you look at a player where he's going to be hitting those prime years, year 3, year 4, year 5. So
especially when you factor in some of these other bold predictions.
Mm-hmm. All right, but we're going to wait, Mike, because these are too bold. We're going to have to take a huge bathroom break just to get through this one.
You need new floors. The dogs have scratched and the kids have stained. But now what? You could learn to live with that overwhelming feeling, or you could talk to the experts at LL Flooring. We're here to be your guide as you navigate this new horizon of hardwood, this valley of vinyl, this landscape of laminate. Because we've seen it all, from rentals to renos to DIYs that turn into why did I think I could do this again? We'll help you find your right floor at the right price, turning indecision into your best decision. LL Flooring. Every step covered.
You need some pom-poms in here, man. Let's go.
This Saturday, the CW is your new home for college football.
Hey, ACC fans, we're coming to the CW.
All your favorite teams.
Go Eagles.
Go Tigers.
Go Blue Devils.
All your favorite players.
I'm just excited to play football again with my guys. It's a totally different energy this year. It's so much fun.
All ready to make history.
We're excited to get to work.
13 unforgettable games.
Are you ready?
And it all kicks off Saturday.
Put the pads on and get after it.
Catch ACC football live Saturday on the CW.
All right, we flushed it out of our system. We're good to go. Mike, hit us with a bold take.
You want me to go, or do you want to go first?
You know what? You want me to lay the foundation?
Yes, I do. I think I'll piggyback off yours.
Okay, so Mike and I arrived at these separately, but it was interesting how we kind of said this is how this could play out. So my bold take is that Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp, you've probably heard of them, will both be outside the top 20 dynasty wide receivers this time next year. So just to give you context, they're both firmly in our ranks, like wide receiver 16, Cooper Kupp, wide receiver 14. Jason has been more bullish, right around wide receiver 12 in dynasty context. And then I looked at other sources just to make sure, hey, are we crazy? Everyone has them at about wide receiver 15, 16, 17. So for both of these wide receivers to fall, I actually added another one for a while, and Mike's going to cover that, Stephon Diggs. So what we're saying is there's a changing of the guard where the wide receivers that you said, hey, I've been able to count on them for championships, and you're saying, I need to get one more run out of these guys, and maybe you think you can. I'm saying that this is the year that things can hit rock bottom, And both Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp, there's warning signs that you'd rather trade now than wait a year and maybe you get production, but the age curve's going to catch up. Like Devontae Adams is so wild that he's about to turn 31 years old. He's under contract through his age 34 season, which is just nuts. When they signed him, when the Raiders signed him, they traded for him and signed him, they gave him $65 million guaranteed to a 30-year-old. I know how contracts work. They don't age very well in the NFL. And what I did is I started to look at other wide receivers and I asked myself the question, would I have rather have been a year early on these great wide receivers, the Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green even, that you're like, okay, he was a dust at the end of his career. AJ Green, when he was age 29, was actually in the same exact spot that Devontae Adams is in Dynasty ADP.
Uh-oh.
Wide receiver 17. So he hadn't fallen off the map yet. Julio Jones at this spot, wide receiver 7. Okay. DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver 10. So you're at the spot where these players are still good. And I would say in redraft, we would have told people you can still play them. But in Dynasty, instead of getting one more elite production, you want people to be able to pay up. So I want to give you some offers for Adams. Kupp's a little difficult because I made this prediction and then we had a setback. So then,
sure.
So it's your fault.
I guess I'm dunking on him. I'm dunking on hamstring injuries. Ugh. All right. Would you guys rather have Devontae Adams, okay, or the 105 next year? You're a rebuilding team.
Right.
And you're saying, hey, I have Devontae Adams, he's a good player, he can help my team, but
I think I can get more than just a first.
Betz?
You probably could. Even if it's just like a second on top of it or something, you could get more than just a first, I think. But
yeah,
shooting for a top 3 or 4 projected pick certainly makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, if you knew that it was going to be a top 3 pick, which you don't know until you know,
right?
Then I'd be okay with that. But usually, almost always, no matter what, if I'm sending a player away, I want more than a 1-for-1 swap. Like I don't want to send one player and get one player back. You know what I mean? Like I'm either unloading some assets because then I'm getting the superstar back, or if I'm trading the player away for picks, I want multiple chances. I don't want just one shot to trade away my guy who, and you'll pull up the numbers, but like as of right now, and last year, Adams was still a superstar.
Right. Well, let me just take it a step further and put that to the test, Mike, because what if I were to offer you, I don't know, you had Devontae Adams and I'm willing to trade you Zay Flowers?
If I am rebuilding, I would take that trade.
Okay. They're very close in our rankings, and it made me realize, like, we're starting to see the gap of, like, in my mind, it's like they're nowhere close in redraft, right?
Correct.
But in Dynasty, we're getting that. So would you guys be willing to say, you know what, I want a piece that's maybe a step down, like Christian Watson could go to the moon, and Betz might be talking about him a little bit.
He's going.
Would you rather have Devontae Adams or Christian Watson in a second-round pick?
I'll take Watson in the
I'm
pick.
biased because of what I'm about to talk about, but I would take Christian Watson.
I am unbiased, and I would take the chance. I'd swing.
Yeah. I think what I'm trying to give people the permission is you'd rather be a year early, and this time next year, it wouldn't be shocking. Maybe it's not even that bold to be able to say, hey, this is a player that is outside the top 20. Cooper Kupp, I had this in here before the injury, but he's signed through 2026, making a ton of money. But the craziest part about the Rams is it wouldn't shock anyone if things they close shop within a year.
Yes.
And we've had those worries before. We had those worries about Stafford this offseason. Like, could he just be done? The defense is not even close to the same thing.
They're already talking about predicting is Aaron Donald a mid-season trade chip.
And it wouldn't shock me too with McVay, which has also been a public thing. So you have all those factors to be able to say, right now, if you knew Cooper Kupp was healthy, like if you knew, okay, you know, right now the value's down, nobody wants to trade for him. But if he's healthy and he returns, I'd rather trade him now than later. And so to have 2 wide receivers drop outside the top 20 is a big deal. But a third one, I would say, is maybe Stephon Diggs.
Sure.
Which is part of Mike's take.
Well, did you give so you ran the numbers on, this is where Julio Jones, AJ Green, and DeAndre Hopkins were at the age 29. Did you give the age 30?
No. So Julio dropped to 12.
That's still, yeah, you're like, okay, that's still great.
AJ Green and Hopkins dropped to 40.
Plummeted.
And then the next year, just irrelevant.
Yes.
And Julio Jones tried to hang on as a Titan, tried to hang on as a Buccaneer. He's still one of the GOATs, but it rapidly falls off at age 30.
I did not even remember he was a Buccaneer.
Guys, I just looked this up.
For a game or two, Mike. Come on.
Guys, last year for the Buccaneers, Julio Jones in week 1 saw 5 targets. He was 3 for 69, second on the team in receiving yards.
Nice.
And he was actually a player that people going into week 2, I remember this, I looked at our week 2 notes, like he was startable, and then he got hurt.
Yeah.
So,
Last pouring out for the GOAT. Forever Julio.
Man, I did not remember that. All right, so mine just a piggyback on Kyle's message here. Mine's phrased a little bit differently, though. I have Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, and Drake London all surpassing Stephon Diggs in a startup value and a startup ADP. This is a very bullish on those 3 wide receivers. Drake isn't the rookie, but I think people are getting lost, honestly, in Drake London of what to do with him, and he is so good. I get that I can make all these arguments, and then the anti-Atlanta people can say, yeah, but what about Kyle Pitts? And I'll go, you're right. My argument seems like it should cross over immediately over to Kyle Pitts, but the vibes are just – did you guys see that recent quote from the Athletic story?
I started to pick it apart a little bit because it had more fantasy bend to it.
Okay.
But I'm not saying the vibes are good at all. But I, as an Atlanta fan, I just had to go, let me make sure I get to the very source of what this is saying. And it was somebody asking him for fantasy advice as opposed to like utilization.
I thought they were mentioning, though, that he could be like 3rd or 4th in targets.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think
which seems insane. And I don't buy that.
That's what the report said, but then someone asked him on X, as they're calling it, which I can never say with a straight face.
Yeah.
And he quote tweeted it and said, or quote X'd it or whatever it is, and said, I meant total opportunities, rushing attempts, and targets. And he said, okay, I'd have Bijan, I've had Algier, and Drake London as the top 3 options in this offense. So clearly,
that's still wild.
The word targets was not correct, but he meant just total touches, opportunities.
Yeah, but I get it. That's still like that feels bad. If you're saying Tyler Algier, who got replaced by a top 10 pick, is going to have more opportunities in the offense. But if
Algier has 115 rush attempts,
I'm in agreement. I'm just saying that's a shocking thing. But anyways,
I didn't want to believe it.
So my message for Drake London is he is so good at football, and in Dynasty, sometimes you have to rely on that and only bet on talent and believe that the situation around them will improve. Drake London's behind-the-scene metrics are just absolutely incredible. I'm not going to rip them all off right now, but just know that Drake London is so good. So these other players, we're bullish on them, but hear about Stephon Diggs. Guys, the ride with Stephon Diggs has been incredible since he got onto the Buffalo Bills, which was also really fun because when he got traded from Minnesota to Buffalo, I had just traded Stephon Diggs to Brooks, our producer from the Fantasy Footballers, and I boom shakalaka dunked, laughed in his face about, oh, you dummy. And I didn't even need to because he was so depressed he's like, he got traded to Buffalo because at the time, Josh Allen stunk. He was so bad. So that ride was really fun. And then, of course, he becomes one of the best wide receivers in football. Josh Allen becomes one of the best quarterbacks. It's been a good time. But Diggs is about to be 30 years old. Kyle just brought up all the numbers on the older players. He has no more guaranteed money, so we're going to need another contract. And if he stays on his current contract, he will jump to 11% of the Bills cap next year, which means a new deal is coming, which means you can capitalize still with Stephon Diggs because you can use look, someone just paid him. But you can look at – so in year 9, we have some guys, year 9 of their career, which Stephon Diggs is in. We have some names. They're still productive. We had 11 guys with 14-plus PPR points per game. Hopkins, was in that group as well, but it was kind of the last time. But then year 10 hits, and we've seen a major decline. We've seen only 6 guys with 14-plus PPR points per game who are in year 10 of their career, and only 4 wide receivers over the last decade had more than 7 receiving touchdowns in that season or above. So once you hit into year 10, things do start to go downhill. Not everybody is Jerry Rice. Like not everyone gets to play into their 40s. It's not how human bodies work. So I'm saying buy in on these rookies. Maybe trade away Stephon Diggs. I think that Diggs will still be very, very good this year, but the time is coming. The switch is happening that we are getting this new crop of players that they're going to jump over, and I think by next year's startup time, those 3 players that I talked about, Addison, Flowers, and Drake, I think they will all surpass Stephon Diggs in actual value. So I would, maybe make some moves accordingly.
I hate this, but I agree with it because I've been riding a Josh Allen Diggs stack for years in Dynasty, and I just keep every year going, is this the year I trade Diggs?
Right.
And every single time, because I don't want to trade Josh Allen at all. Like I don't even care. But Diggs is one of those players where I'd rather be a year early. And the comp you gave was great. You talked about DeAndre Hopkins in 2021. Was that when he came to the Cardinals? His first year?
I believe that's possible. I don't know off the top of my head.
It was just, he was still at an age, he was 29 years old, same kind of season as Diggs, in year 9, where he was awesome, right? And
20, he got here in 2020.
Okay.
So 2021 was, he only had the 10 games played, but he was
awesome.
He was still all right, yeah.
So with DeAndre Hopkins, you would have been so glad if you would have traded him there at the peak of what he was. And I'm just worried that that's where we're going to be talking about Diggs, where it's like right now, Hopkins, yes, you can kind of like add him on as a piece, like, but in Dynasty, he feels more like in wide receiver 3-ville and soon to be out in the next year or 2. Is that where Diggs is going to land up, where a player that he wants a new contract, obviously.
Of course.
Dude talks about all the time. Is he going to be with this team, different team, whatever. I'd just rather be a year early, but I'm also a contender with my team, so I just feel stuck.
Sure.
Which means I'll probably end up in second place again.
Yeah, championships they're so hard to get. So if I'm a contender, if I were you, and I had the stack, I'd ride it out this year. And then maybe as soon as I'm either in or I'm out of the championship contention, once I know that, if I'm out, I'll ship them off. If I'm in, I'll ride it out to the end of the year and then try and move them before the draft happens.
Yeah.
Overall, looking at the Bills, the Bills will probably re-sign him.
And Gabe Davis is going to be a free agent too.
It's like, but in the event, because the contract is going to come to a head, something will have to happen. And if they're not offering Stephon Diggs the amount of money that he wants, he strikes me as a player, and this is all through, the insane tweets that we get, that Stephon Diggs will say, fine, cut me. I'm going to go and get money. And he doesn't end up back on the Bills. And now, I know we're really in the hypothetical weeds here, but you struck the conversation up. What happens with the Buffalo Bills? I mean, like, what happens if Josh Allen doesn't have a true number 1 wide receiver? It's very interesting.
We do team outlook stuff all the time, in the Dynasty Pass. That's one of the things that Betz and I do is just like project over the years. I mean, this team is a lot more fragile on the offensive side than what we think. And we look at their contracts all the time. Betz, is there any takeaways you have of just this team from Josh Allen, we're not worried about. We're not going to say anything about him in a startup. But the rest of this team, could go. I mean, James Cook's not a guarantee. So any thoughts, Betz?
Yeah, and I think they are already not admitting that, but they recognize, look, in the AFC, to win a Super Bowl, you don't need just one great option. You need 2 or 3. That's why we're seeing, Burrow and Chase and Higgins, and we're seeing, on the other side, the Eagles had an incredible run with their 2 studs. You need these elite options to help get you over the hump. And in the AFC, it's insane. You're playing against Mahomes and those guys. But yeah, they recognized it. They were trying to go out and get one of the wide receivers. They couldn't, so they took Dalton Kincaid to give him another offensive weapon. I would not be shocked if they took a round 1, round 2, or multiple guys next year again to keep trying to add that talent. But yeah, it does feel like kind of a make or break because, like you're saying, Diggs is getting to that age. Gabe Davis, I don't think is what they thought he could be. So there is, I think, more volatility here than a lot of people. When you just look at the team on the surface level, you think, oh, it's Josh Allen, the Bills, like they're good. But I do think there is some volatility here, and it wouldn't be shocking in a year or two if you're like, man, let's get Josh Allen another top wide receiver here, because I do see the downside.
For sure. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
At LL Flooring, pros get more discounts and more perks. With pro-exclusive pricing, you get the best price every day on over 500 floors, with local favorites in stock and ready to go, as well as a full selection of tools and accessories. You also get access to our experts who are trained to help you keep your business running smoothly. And at LL Flooring, pros always get unlimited free samples, hassle-free returns, extended store hours, and more. So register today in-store or online at llflooring.com/pro and start getting all the perks of being a pro. LL Flooring.
You need some pom-poms in here, man. Let's go.
This Saturday, the CW is your new home for college football.
Hey, ACC fans, we're coming to the CW.
All your favorite teams.
Go Eagles.
Go Tigers.
Go Blue Devils.
All your favorite players.
I'm just excited to play football again with my guys. It's a totally different energy this year. It's so much fun.
All ready to make history.
We're excited to get to work.
13 unforgettable games.
Are you ready?
And it all kicks off Saturday.
Put the pads on and get after it.
Catch ACC football live Saturday on the CW.
We're each going to give one more bold dynasty prediction. And Betz, I will let you get this started.
I mean, you already warned the people, Kyle, that Christian Watson is going to the moon. He's on a rocket ship, and he is going.
This is
because
wild.
My bold prediction is that next year, Christian Watson is a round 1 startup pick in single quarterback leagues. Let me just say, single quarterbacks. For all you super flex people out there, single quarterback. But the reason he is going to be that is because he is last year's Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I
How
do
does that
not
make
mean
you feel, Kyle?
Yeah, Kyle, what's up, dude?
Okay.
He's just dumbfounded right now.
Well, hold on. Before this moment appeared on the show, were you in or out on Watson?
Oh, I've been out.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Good, of course.
It's even stickier now.
Yeah,
and I want to say this too. This is not a stylistic comp. Obviously, these two players play completely differently. Where Watson's this huge big play guy, much taller frame, et cetera, et cetera. But I think back to Amon-Ra St. Brown as a rookie, and it was like nothing for the first 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks.
All of a sudden, wasn't until the playoffs,
right? Fantasy playoffs, he came in and was like incredible. And then we had the offseason, last couple weeks of the year, Super Bowl playoffs, everything calms down. And then we get to our offseason analysis, and everyone's like, well, Amon-Ra St. Brown only did it because TJ Hawkinson was out. Well, he only did it because DeAndre Swift was out. There's no way he can sustain this. The haters were saying this.
Betz, they were
questioning.
We were implying this could be the reason.
Well,
we weren't
Kyle.
just saying we think Amon-Ra is bad. We think there could have been a manufactured reason why he was so good.
That's fair. That is a fair point, Michael.
I don't.
People
I
were
just
wondering.
don't like his shtick, man. I don't like this.
His shtick?
Yeah, well, then
What?
Tank Dell decided to do the same thing.
Oh, that's even
wide
worse.
receivers? How was that a shtick?
It's a ruse. I don't like it.
Come on, Kyle. He's got that dog. Come on.
It is legitimate, real motivation.
That is so wild.
Kyle's just laughing.
It's
Keep going,
I
Betz.
promise. You know who? Kobe. I promise Kobe had a list.
Dude, Kobe is a killer, though.
I know.
You heard it here first. Kobe
I'm just saying,
Bryant,
I'm
Amon-Ra
saying
St. Brown.
These athletes, they need something. And if you weren't the first overall pick, then you take a list of everyone who was drafted in front of you, and you're going to show the entire world how dumb everybody was. Continue.
And that's
Betz.
what Christian Watson is about to do.
He's Kobe. Christian Watson is Kobe.
There you go. So think about that, right? That was the Amon-Ra story where it was like, yeah, he was great, but like, here's why it wasn't real. And then he comes out last year 2 wide receiver, which we love betting on in fantasy, and he has a fantastic season. Now think about Christian Watson's rookie season, right? He was injured, banged up, missed the first 6, 7 weeks, whatever it was. Romeo Doubs was kind of the guy. And then there was a changing of the guard where Christian Watson came out of nowhere and exploded from week 10 on to be a fantasy monster. Now, granted, a lot of it was touchdowns. That certainly is not something we want to bet on year over year, but the underlying numbers were awesome. From week 10 on, a 22.3% target share and 2.58 yards per route run. That number is insane. That will probably regress. But when you look at his end of season yards per route run, 2.26 was the 7th highest of any rookie wide receiver over the last decade. That stat is credit to John Daigle from 444. That's the type of player he could be. If he has an Amon-Ra St. Brown-esque year where he comes out of nowhere, his rookie season, then does it again in year 2, he is going to be a top 12 dynasty wide receiver because of his age and because what if Jordan Love's good?
Yeah.
Like, they've looked really good in the preseason, and it's the preseason. But, man, he has looked good. The offense has looked good. And the competition for targets, it's a bunch of rookies and a rookie tight end.
I can't argue with where he is and where he could go. Now, I think yours is scorching
Which
hot.
is to the moon.
Which is why he's on this show. When I look at the second-year players, it's easy for me to kind of file him back behind a lot of other guys. Like, would you rather have Christian Watson or Jahan Dotson in Dynasty?
I mean, probably Dotson.
Betz?
But I think there's an argument.
There's not a wrong answer. It's easier for me to push him back.
Yeah, I think I lean Watson, but I love Dotson.
Yeah, the touchdown archetypes that we've seen with, Gabe Davis did this as a rookie. Martavis Bryant did this as a rookie.
Chase Claypool.
Yeah, that's the bad names. You don't want to be included.
No, but also what's crazy is the other rookies on that list with like really small targets but huge touchdowns is Jahan Dotson as well. So it's like,
sure.
it's just looking at a player and saying like, is Christian Watson Mike Evans in the making? Because he's got the same body type, huge, run down the field, big plays, or is he Gabe Davis? And he's probably not Gabe Davis. I feel good about saying that. He's probably somewhere in the middle. So
I mean, Gabe Davis, wasn't he like a 4th or 5th round,
fourth round
pick too from a NFL talent evaluation standpoint? I mean, Watson was a 2nd round pick, so the NFL liked him.
Yeah. No, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with it. I'm ready to give a bold and spicy take that I think my friend Mike here will not enjoy.
Okay. No, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I have allowed it to wash over me, and I have accepted that this is possible.
Okay, good, because this is a name, Kenny Pickett, that we brought up, I want to say like in May.
Yeah.
As just, here's a sneaky little buy.
Oh, I had him. I would have had him at no chance back then.
Mike literally laughed at me. I remember the show.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So my bold prediction is that Kenny Pickett will have 30-plus total touchdowns and be a top 12 dynasty quarterback this time next year. Kenny Pickett, everything right now in preseason is rosy. He went 6-2 in his final 8 starts. So for fantasy, we look back at last year and say it was just doo-doo, and it was very, very bad. Threw 7 touchdowns. It took him a while behind Trubisky. But in preseason, it's been good, and it seems like the team's all about him. He was named one of the team captains, which, fun fact, like, Ben Roethlisberger was not named a team captain until year 5.
Oh,
which
that's a spicy little nugget.
There you go. Also, I found this really funny quote from Dan Moore, one of their offensive linemen, who said, quote, on Kenny Pickett being named a captain, he has it. I don't know what it is, but he has it.
Good work, Dan.
Dan, they shoved a mic in front of Dan, the offensive lineman. He's like, he's got it. I don't know what it is, but I just died laughing. Like, okay, dude, come on, just say something nice. Like,
you could just say he has it. End of story.
and just log out, Dan. But Kenny Pickett in preseason has been a huge story. I feel like he's been shooting up a lot of people's boards. It's just like he's a sleeper. He's sneaky, and he's the highest graded quarterback in PFF for preseason. Whatever that means to you, I think everybody would say he's looked really good, and the weapons have been interesting. Like, across the board, it's like it's not just Najee. Jalen Warren's had some big touchdowns. Deontay's looked good. George Pickens, your boy Allen Robinson. Okay, maybe
not my boy. Not my boy.
Freiermuth. Calvin Austin is going to be a fun player, like a gadget player for them. So they have the weapons, but let's move on from just Kenny Pickett. Here's the vibes, and we just move on. Second-year jumps for quarterbacks, it's a real thing. And usually we think of like the big names, like Mahomes in his second year went to the moon, MVP. Lamar Jackson, second year, MVP. Josh Allen transformed. Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields last year, right? Like, went from players in Dynasty like, oh, did I screw up this pick, to holy crap, this is a franchise player for me. And in Superflex, you're like, I have somebody I can count on. But there's other guys that made huge jumps. Carson Wentz, people, I think we forget what he did in his second year. Betz, as an Eagles fan, did you think Carson Wentz was like the best thing ever his second year?
The NFL did, because he was going to win the MVP.
Yes.
He didn't tear his ACL.
He really was. Like, his touchdown rate was 7.5. Like, he threw 33 touchdowns.
It was fraudulent.
It didn't turn out so hot, but you got to admit, that year he was awesome for fantasy, and he was awesome for the team, and he would have won MVP.
Yeah, and I was the Breaking Bad gif. I was screaming, he can't keep getting away with this.
And now who has the last
Yeah,
laugh?
that's right.
So
Nick Foles,
Carson Wentz and his hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever.
Yeah, he's feeling totally fine. So there's precedence for players like that, but Kenny Pickett wasn't just bad. He was historically bad. He posted the lowest touchdown rate, 1.8%, of any rookie quarterback that has 12 starts since 1990. Like, you look at a list, he was the worst. Now, Trevor Lawrence was also on that list as like bottom 5. And the good news is, if you look back since 2000, the average for a sophomore first-round quarterback, which Kenny Pickett was a first-round pick, the average touchdown rate since 2000 was 4.6%, which is awesome. It's be a massive jump from him for what he did last year.
Sure.
You might say to yourself, okay, well, Kenny Pickett, he was drafted later. He's not as important. You know, he was drafted 20th overall. It's really the top 10 picks. So if you were to sort just by top 10 picks, it's the exact same percentage. Top 10 picks had a 4.65%, 11 on, 4.7. So I don't care if you're a first-round quarterback and in your sophomore year, you're going to improve. And I think we can at least all say it's going to go up from 1.8%. But Kenny Pickett can kind of sneakily run the ball, and we forget about that. Last year, Kenny Pickett had exactly 55 rush attempts, which is, I could just log out now and say that that's
Sure.
a good argument. But he ran for 237 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he didn't start all the games, okay? That's 4 rush attempts per game, 18 yards, and there's only 8 quarterbacks that hit those games, hit those marks. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, we don't have as many quarterbacks. Like, that's where Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, Geno Smith gives you that little bump you need in fantasy. And I think that's not always accounted in for Kenny Pickett, other than that really cool, sliding move he had in college that people always show. So I think Kenny Pickett can hit 30-plus touchdowns, which is what Geno did last year. And I think, I'm looking at the tiers right now we have. I'm looking at these quarterbacks. We did a whole show on Superflex tiers, and Kyler Murray, we have him right around the top 10. It's like, it's volatile.
It is.
Anthony Richardson.
Super volatile.
Super volatile, right? Like, let's say we had Fields at that same spot. Like, Fields dropped a ton from year 1 to year 2 because it was just bad. Dak, he's up for a contract soon, and that'll change. Deshaun Watson, who knows?
Super volatile.
Tua is a volatile player in general. And then we have the rookies like Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Like, they're not going to tear the doors off. So all that to say, when you think about who is a top 15, top 12 quarterback, I think there's room for Kenny Pickett, and I'm ready for you guys just to tell me that's the best argument you've ever heard.
I think there's room for him as a top 12 quarterback. I don't know if he'll get there. I don't know that he will get there.
Mike, you have changed.
I was going to say that's enough.
You've grown.
He's looked great, and it's very surprising to me because he looked so bad. I don't think he'll pass Kyler. I would. I think that the Dak contract extension, there was something today about that starting to heat up, and beat reporters basically saying we would not be surprised if Dak was the next one on the list for Jerry Jones, and I think Dak is still good. So I wouldn't have him passing those two guys, but I'd like maybe QB 12. Right there.
Betz, would you be happy if Kenny Pickett was your QB2 in a Superflex league?
Yeah, I said it in May, and I still feel that way, and I feel like I'm better about it today.
You win.
The other thing, too, was just the preseason. Like, last year when you watched the Steelers games down the stretch, they were so conservative. They were trying to win, 17-14 every game. But, and it's the preseason, right? So, we can't overreact, but, they're letting him throw the ball deep. Deontay is great. George Pickens is great. Freiermuth is great. He's got 2 good running backs. Like, he has the weapons for sure. So I can see the path.
All right, Mike, finish us out with one more bold and spicy.
All right. I think that this still fits in with my theme of screw them running backs. Even though I like this player a lot, it's well documented. But the fact that I'm calling for this to happen just explains how crazy the running back landscape is each and every year. Alexander Mattison jumps to be a top 15 drafted running back in startup next year after having a great year for the Minnesota Vikings as the running back 1. Just look back last year, Dalvin Cook saw the highest snap percentage of his career by a wide margin, 72% of the snaps. You had a brand new offensive coach and a new offensive philosophy. He jumped into a workhorse running back. Before that, the highest snap percentage in games played would have been as a sophomore at 63%. He saw 56 targets. We're talking about Dalvin Cook this past year. Now, I'm not saying that Alexander Mattison is as good as peak Dalvin Cook. That is not at all the argument. The point is he is good enough. His contract he has is this year and next year, and he's going to be the RB1 for a really high-scoring offense. And then, okay, well, Dynasty, Mike. Alexander Mattison has been in the league forever. Surely he can't jump up into the top 15. Well, here's some wild information that I haven't even brought up the whole entire time I've been on Team Madison here because, honestly, I hadn't even thought to look at it. Alexander Mattison is headed into year 5 of his career. Year 5. Here are running backs that are older than Alexander Mattison. Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Najee Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert. In fact, Mattison is barely older than Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins, Rashad White, Isaiah Pacheco. Like, this blew my mind.
Pacheco's in year 2, which is even crazy. Like, year 2 in the
Rashad
NFL.
White is in year 2.
That's crazy.
And Madison's like 6 months older than these people. It blew my mind. So he's not as old as you think he is. So the age cliff is still a few years away from Alexander Mattison. And it's jumping into the top 15. Okay, so looking at it right now, right, we have Etienne, Walker, Ramondre, Tony Pollard, Nick Chubb, Javonte, Najee, and Austin Eckler, right? Eckler is probably about to fall out. Even if Eckler has a crazy good year this year, you can't possibly take a 29, 30-year-old running back in the top 15. And that list that I just rattled off, Stevenson and Tony Pollard were not in that tier. They were backup running backs. Now, again, I'm not saying that Alexander Mattison is a better player than those guys, but the point is you can be a backup and still make a tier jump to be a top 15 running back for at least a couple years. He won't last there very long, but I think that he'll have such a year, people will realize how old he actually is, which is 25.
Maybe he doesn't even know how old he is.
Yeah, is this who was our boy on the Carolina Panthers?
Cameron Artis-Payne?
Cameron Artis-Payne, yeah, who like kept aging a year every single day there for a little bit. That was wild. But he's not over the hill. He's on a great offense.
It's a great callback.
He should be the starter for at least 2 years, and I think that he makes the jump. And now here's the difficult part of like playing it out. If Alexander Mattison makes the jump to being a top 15 running back, do I trade him? Yeah, I probably do. Oh. I cash in my 1 year. I'm excited about it that my draft pick finally paid off. But the point is, screw those running backs. These rankings jump all over, and you can't stop it because you have to react to the market. It's just the fact that running backs don't hold their value. They get surpassed. Backups jump into the top 15. Crazy stuff happens all the time. Wide receivers are much easier to hold on to once they hit a certain status. But I think by next offseason, Alexander Mattison, top 15 running back.
No, I love looking at these rankings and who jumped in here. Like, so Ramondre is entering year 3. He's older. And last year, Ramondre was seen as the backup to a player, Damian Harris, who had, 15 rushing touchdowns.
Right.
And so coming into the season, I don't think anybody said there's a scenario where Ramondre Stevenson's now a top, 15, like top 10 dynasty running back. Things change more than people realize. So capitalize on that. Like Ramondre would be another player. I don't mind if you want to capitalize on Ramondre and say, hey, he was a 4th round pick. He's a New England running back, whatever narrative you want to spin, and be able to say, hey, I think I can actually get something for him for your team. So Betz, any Madison thoughts? Cause
join me, Betz.
Yes, I'm happy to jump in here. Madison's been a guy I've been flip-flopping on kind of all offseason. And I see the argument for both sides, especially for redraft. It's like, well, he's the classic dead zone back, and he hasn't gotten this opportunity before, and these guys usually fail. But a lot of the times I hear names like Mike Davis get thrown around, and it's like, well, Mike Davis was like around the NFL for years. He was like 29. Everyone just assumed he was the guy in Atlanta who was going to be a terrible team when he was there.
The guy.
It's a different situation, and they went into the offseason they knew they were moving on from Dalvin Cook. They knew when they re-signed Madison that he would be the guy, and he's talked about that openly. Like, yeah, they told me when I re-signed I'm the one. So they were planning for this since April, March, whatever. Like, it's been in their plans, and so for that reason, I'm kind of in on him this year.
Yeah, and Toby Gerhardt's one of the other examples, but every example of the guys who failed, they all switched teams. Like Alexander Madison, I don't know that we can try and research this, but I don't know that we've had this exact scenario where a player is going into year 5 at the running back position, has been behind a truly elite player. So I don't and the Pollard Zeke stuff. I mean, I guess maybe that's a little bit the same, but Pollard had earned more playing time. I get it. You can use that as a reason. Well, Pollard got to play. Why didn't Madison get on the field? And I don't know. But again, citing those numbers of Madison was getting on the field more, and then you had a brand new coach who maybe O'Connell just likes the one running back system. There's still a handful of coaches who that's how they prefer it because they don't want to tip their hand with the running back who's on the field. What type of play is about to happen? And when you put your satellite back in, the defense knows that we're going to either pass the ball or run a draw, and that's our only 2 options. But if you have someone who has a 3-down skill set, which Madison does have, it opens things up for you. So take that. Take that, Madison haters.
Yeah,
it's time.
It's a rare player to find, and I did some research a while back of just finding players like Tony Pollard. Like, hey, over the course of his career, he never got the touches he wanted. Like in his first 4 years, he has less than 650 touches. But if you saw glimpses of it early when they had it, then it was more predictable. Where there were certain players like Joique Bell or Tevin Coleman, where it's like, okay, you never really fully got to see them unleashed as just the only dude. Like Tevin Coleman never had the backfield just to himself.
Right, and then he had to change teams.
So it's really rare to find that player, and Madison's a really fun one. I traded for him in Dino Jr., and he's my RB1 because that's what you do.
Wow.
That's what you got to do with running backs sometimes. That's going to do it for the show. If you want to talk more Dynasty, you can do that in our Discord channels. And we're ready for week 1, people. Have a good week.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your Dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.
CuriosityStream is the streaming service for people who want to know more about our world and beyond. And all this week, CuriosityStream takes you on an adventure.
Liftoff.
Out of this world with Space Week. From the secrets of the universe.
We're going to look at things we've never seen before.
To the controversial search for Earth's lost moon.
NASA said, throw everything you've got at this thing.
Don't miss Space Week on CuriosityStream. With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at CuriosityStream.com.